Hi, I'm nervous, and today I would like to revisit what is, in my opinion, the most popular Tales from the Pizzaplex story, GGY. While I imagine most of you already know and understand this story, I still want to have a video dedicated to it since there were some lines that caught my attention I haven't heard anyone address. Now, that doesn't mean I believe I'm the first to notice them, but nonetheless, it will be nice to have this video to point to regarding all things GGY. I'm also going to try something new today in formatting this discussion, offering a briefer summary than usual, then diving into more details throughout my analysis, laying out all of the evidence given to us in this story and what it all points to, at least in my opinion. Then, I'm going to offer some alternative interpretations of GGY and how I believe it could be further evidence for RemnantPlex Theory that I couldn't fit cleanly into my initial video. Now, without further ado, let's get analyzing. Tony, a 12-year-old boy, is the main character of our story, and I view him as a stand-in for all of us, an inquisitive mind investigating the Pizzaplex out of an insatiable curiosity. He's given the pieces of a puzzle and tries, in vain it would seem, to put it all together. He's in a creative writing class with his two friends, called Boots and Dr. Rabbit, or Rab. Those aren't their real names, just pen names they picked for themselves for the purposes of the assignment. And they are tasked with writing a fictional story together. Now, Tony would rather be investigating the mysterious high scores at Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex's Fazcade, and decides he'll just change some details to make it fictional. The name attributed to the high scores is GGY, but no one has ever seen someone using those initials actually playing the arcade games. Tony struggles to gain any information about the mysterious GGY, but he does learn about a hacked Play Pass card that acts more like a security badge, assigned to none other than GGY. All while investigating, it seems Tony is being surveyed by Glamrock Freddy, something that leaves him feeling disconcerted. Despite all the evidence collected by Tony throughout his investigation, he struggles to put together the why of it all. He learns that other kids are suspicious about GGY, though not enough to investigate, and he learns that people in town who have been reported missing line up with people GGY used his pass to let into the Pizzaplex after hours. However, before he uncovers the full truth, the paper is coming due. He hands it off to his two friends, who make some changes that Tony is unhappy with, namely calling GGY the wizard's most favored apprentice, among other things. This infuriates Tony, and he wants to turn the story back into the eerie, more realistic mystery that it had originally been, but he doesn't have time. He has to turn it in as is. And afterwards, Dr. Rabbit, or Greg as we learn is his real name, invites Tony to the Pizzaplex to play games with his friends. So first off, I think it's pretty well accepted that Greg, aka GGY, is the same Gregory from Security Breach we've all come to know and love or hate. And in my memory, this story became the first big push for Tales games, since you could find GGY on the leaderboards in the Security Breach Pizzaplex. At the very least, it was our first solid information about Gregory as a character, since the games revealed very little. And since the release of the interactive novel VIP, we got potentially even more information about those seemingly impossible arcade game high scores. Here are the things that seem to be definitive facts about Gregory that we can get from GGY. First, we can assume Gregory is patient 46 from the Security Breach therapy CDs due to the presence of the therapists at his school and the fact that they went missing just like the therapists from the game. Not only this, but one therapist even specifically mentions she also works in schools.
Our sessions don't have to be company mandated. I have all sorts of clients, Vanessa. I don't just work with corporations. I work with individuals and small groups. I even work in schools. I'm wherever I'm needed.
We also learn that he is acting under the direction and/or influence of Glitchtrap, calling himself Dr. Rabbit and writing himself in the story as the wizard's favorite apprentice. And keep that bit about the wizard in mind because we're going to revisit it in a little while. But beyond that, we know from GGY that Gregory was in some way responsible for the local residents going missing. We get the connection that a modified play pass assigned to GGY was capable of letting people in and out of the Pizzaplex, as well as granted access to employee-only areas. And his invitation to Tony at the end of the story suggests he led his friend to a similar fate. Finally, we seem to learn that Gregory is a gifted hacker, able to alter the code of the animatronics without being detected by staff. Well, at least not at first. It becomes apparent that GGY is the one doing the hacking due to the G's and Y's found within the code. We know later a therapist does confront him about this information and, well, we know what happens next.
The techs have been struggling to fix some serious glitches with the robots. It began infecting all the machines, and when the techs traced the glitch back to its origin, it led them to you. Why don't we come back to this another day? You're shaking your head as though that's not going to happen.
From this information alone, a number of theories about Gregory arose, and we'll get to them. But first, I want to look ahead to VIP and what the interactive novel shed light on regarding GGY. If you don't know the story of VIP, it's a free interactive novel you can go through yourself. And if you're more of an audiobook fan, you're in luck, because I created an audiobook version of the entire story. But if you just want a brief summary, it's a story about a boy named Devin being gifted a VIP pass to the Pizzaplex for a day. However, upon arrival, he learns that VIP actually stands for Very Informative Pig. It's also clear that the pass isn't a standard issue pass. To me, it's reminiscent of Greg's modified play pass from the GGY story, granting special access to areas that should be off limits to normal guests. When Devin doesn't do exactly as the pig says, his brother is kidnapped and will only be returned if he scores enough points playing games in the Plex. From here, you face a number of obstacles that lead to different endings, but one ending in particular caught the community's attention. Devin finds a Glamrock Freddy head helmet that VIP says is a virtual Pizzaplex experience that's still a work in progress. But once inside, he learns that points are multiplied by 10 in the helmet, and by 100 if you put the helmet on again once you're in the helmet. This helmet, if it truly exists in our game's timeline, could easily explain GGY's high scores, as well as the mystery as to why no one has ever actually seen him playing the games. I've even gone a step farther, suggesting the helmet was the Freddy head we see in Security Breach, though likely modified, and that's why we can see through Freddy's eyes in the game. But that is purely my theory and not something that the VIP book states. And since we're talking about theories now, let's talk about the popular theory posed by Game Theory that Gregory is a robot. GGY plays an important part in this theory, specifically the fact that Greg is a new student at Tony's school, and at the very end of the story, Greg cocks his head to the side and waves at Tony in a way that is reminiscent of Glitchtrap. There is other evidence presented, including Vanessa ordering some lifelike male rubber masks, and the way many of the Tale stories leading up to and following this one include robots wanting to be perceived as or mimic humans, and vice versa. My thoughts on this proposal are mixed. For one, I'm not opposed to the idea. I've never really cared if there was a secret robot character in modern FNAF. The problem is, I just don't believe it. At the very least, I don't believe there isn't a human Gregory. In my opinion, one of two things is a more likely explanation. Either there is a human Gregory that's been replaced by Gregbot, or Gregory is a human whose mind is under the control of Glitchtrap the same way Vanessa's is. If Gregbot exists, I think the Greg we meet in GGY would be the robot, but we play as the real Gregory in Security Breach. It would explain why Gregory doesn't seem to understand what's happening in the Pizzaplex despite GGY being a huge component of it, and why GGY acts robotic while Gregory never really does. We even know that the mimics specifically mimicked Gregory, so it wouldn't be far-fetched to suggest a more advanced version of that existed in the game's timeline. Now, I personally prefer the idea that Gregory is and has always been a real kid, just one who experienced the same thing Vanessa has. It would allow that wizard's favored apprentice line to mean more too. Where Vanessa is reluctant, Gregory is fully obedient. But whatever you believe, it seems clear that by the events of Security Breach, Gregory is no longer under the control of Glitchtrap. And that's where I believe one of our key pieces of understood information about Gregory falls apart. See, I've never really understood the insistence that Gregory is a gifted hacker. I can believe that he'd have some knowledge of tech and computer skills, even knowledge about the Pizzaplex considering his connections to Cassie. I've talked about this before, but within the GGY story, being good with tech and hacking into Fazbear's computers specifically isn't a huge deal. We meet other children in the story who do this as a hobby. But if Gregory is a particularly skilled hacker, why does he have so much trouble even leaving the Pizzaplex? If he is able to hack into and control the animatronics' behavior, why can't he just make it to where they aren't hostile towards him? To me, it makes more sense that everything perceived as Greg's hacking is actually Glitchtrap and the virus. Vanessa, as Vanny, would be able to modify his play pass to be more of a security badge, and from there, all GGY needs to do is spread the virus wherever it demands to be spread. Now, if you notice my language here is non-specific, that's because it's still hard for me to articulate exactly what is happening in the Pizzaplex. On one hand, Glitchtrap has very explicitly been referred to as a virus, and I'm comfortable with that terminology as well as the implementation of an artificial intelligence. But on the other hand, there is the option that properties like Agony or Remnant are at play here. So I'm just going to speak more abstractly about the what and focus on the fact that whatever is happening is not something Gregory is naturally capable of. So why was Gregory selected for this role to begin with? Presumably, Glitchtrap already had Vanessa, she just wasn't cooperative enough. She was able to compartmentalize things enough to only sometimes be under his control.
I can't talk about this. He said he would always be watching. He could be here, or there, or anywhere in between. Are you talking about your dad? I hate sounding like a broken record, but this is something you really need to resolve if you're ever going to be happy. I have. I compartmentalized him. He's locked away.
The rabbit needed someone more malleable, like a child, maybe even one that was small for his age. And if we run with the idea that somehow Afton's memories via Remnant or Agony still resided within the Glitchtrap program, it would make sense for him to hone in on a child who looks like his son and decide to reclaim him as his own. Something that stood out to me in this story is how it's clear that Rab or Greg is overtaken by Glitchtrap throughout the story, and his actions are not really his own. Tony calls out that he'll appear contemplating something intense with a rigid expression on his face. And when they're choosing their pen names, Dr. Rabbit says the name just came to him right before Tony points out that Rab had recently cut his own hair. It occurred to me that Gregory would not normally choose to have short brown hair or wear that exact striped shirt, but that he'd feel suddenly compelled to do these things and never fought the impulses. Glitchtrap slowly transforming him into a new crying child. It is interesting, though, that Gregory within Security Breach seems to know about the disappearances despite not fully understanding what's causing them, which is why I believe Vanessa was the first one to be put under Glitchtrap's control, and even why I've speculated in the past that Gregory was investigating the initial disappearances at the Plex, and that's what caused Vanessa, and by extension Vanny, to notice him, and Glitchtrap to see him as a potential asset. So okay, I believe GGY lets us see that Gregory was once under Glitchtrap's control and that he committed heinous acts while under it. But didn't I say at the beginning of this video that I believed a part of this story related back to my RemnantPlex theory? Well, let's talk about it. I'm actually just going to read this excerpt from the book because I want you to hear it clean, without my interpretations attached to it first. After reading the second page of the story, which described a corporate conspiracy that somehow reached another planet where the wizard resided, Tony's head began to throb. When he saw his description of GGY's control over the animatronics had turned into an animatronic supervillain who went to battle with a tentacled monster, Tony was pretty sure his ears were emitting steam. A corporate conspiracy that somehow reached another planet where the wizard resided. We were being told all the way back here about the digital realm we were able to access and interact with while wearing the Vanny mask. And frankly, I don't think it's a question that Fazbear Entertainment is aware of this because these masks seem corporate issued. So how likely is it, really, that Fazbear Entertainment is aware of Vanny's appearance? They're developing and distributing these masks to their employees as well as super aware of the Mimic and all of its goings-ons, but that the scooper or scooper-esque technology is something they have nothing to do with. It was there when they built the building, or somebody snuck it in and they just kind of left it there and never really messed with it in any way and never discovered it. I don't know. I just don't buy it. I mean, you can disagree with me on how it's being used, but I cannot get on board with the idea that Fazbear Entertainment is blissfully unaware of its existence and at least some of what it is able to do. Some people have argued with me about the lengths Fazbear Entertainment would go as a company to save some money and really don't agree with the idea that they'd actively choose to kill people. But I would like to remind you that we're talking about FNAF here, a story where the original entrepreneur responsible for the company's success, at least a part of it, literally did kill children, and not even for profit. I'm not sure why we're hung up on the idea that the greedy higher-ups of a company are somehow morally above murder. I feel like we need a history lesson on how many greedy CEOs have actively allowed their employees to die tragic deaths and felt absolutely no remorse or responsibility. I won't get into specifics here because real-life tragedy is a different world, but even within modern FNAF, there are multiple instances of employee injuries and deaths being swept under the rug or even directly caused by selfish decisions the company made to cut costs or save time. It doesn't matter if you fully believe Tales games or only a part of it. Even if you just look at the games themselves, people are going missing. Gregory and Glamrock Freddy are aware it's related to the Pizzaplex. A therapist is found dead, her body mangled by machinery, and the company doesn't care. Honestly, it seems like they don't need to care. No amount of suspicious activity seems to be hurting their business, which makes me think they've got major influence over this community, to the point where they're not worried about their reputation or any legal ramifications. I also think it's worth calling out Greg's depiction of an animatronic supervillain fighting a tentacled monster, because it conjures images of the main, even if not canon, ending of Security Breach and the corresponding drawing from Ruin. This is fascinating to me because the implication is either that Gregory had some kind of vision or premonition of this event, which draws yet another parallel to Oswald and Into the Pit, or it was originally directing us as readers to the canon ending of Security Breach before it seems they pivoted to Princess Quest. Now, alternatively, this could be nods to the Afted Amalgamation and Eleanor from Fazbear Frights, which I think would be funny specifically because you could suddenly interpret this entire section of GGY as Scott Cawthon blowing off steam about how his vision for Fazbear Frights was ruined by the corporation of Scholastic taking his story that he was extremely proud of and twisting it into something utterly bizarre and therefore not the least bit disturbing, being forced to put it on the shelves despite it not matching his original vision. And for those of you who don't know, the idea was that Fazbear Frights was meant to be a shorter series and Scholastic ordered more books than Scott had planned, and that's why those Stitch Wraith stingers end up making Eleanor a much bigger part of the story than we had thought maybe she would be. But I think that's enough analysis for one day, and I am moving forward with the belief that Gregory is GGY and was initially under the control of Glitchtrap, a loyal servant who would even go so far as to alter his appearance to look more like Afton's youngest son. He did the bidding of the rabbit until freed from his control, presumably by the Balloon Boy arcade machine, though we aren't ever given confirmation on that. Once freed, he didn't retain any knowledge of hacking and relied on Glamrock Freddy to help him escape the Pizzaplex. However, he did seem to retain a level of understanding that children were going missing, and he had a desire to put a stop to it. I think it's likely he managed to figure out how to free Vanessa from Glitchtrap's control too, and that the two of them didn't just go their separate ways after the events of Security Breach. But what happened in between the events of Security Breach and Ruin are things we can only speculate on for now. But what do you think? Am I reading too much into the story, calling out the idea of a corporate conspiracy? Or does it further suggest Fazbear Entertainment are quite aware of what is going on at every level of the Pizzaplex? And one more GGY fun fact, the school Tony and the gang attend is called out as being made of limestone. That detail stuck out to me, so I did a little research on areas in the US with the highest concentrations of limestone, and do you know which state was listed among those with the most limestone? Utah. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you want to show your support for the video, go ahead and hit the like button and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you really enjoyed it, consider subscribing and become a part of the nervous system. I upload videos every week and go live on most Wednesdays and Fridays, but if you can't wait, there are videos on the screen right now just for you. Okay, bye! It's apparent that GGY is the one doing the hacking,